Welcome back to Funky Politics, the hardest hitting political show on the planet. And a hearty top of the morning to all of my funky listeners, right? And those who are catching us through Facebook Live or YouTube, you're in for a treat today. Let me tell you, you're in for a treat today. But before I go there, somebody, anybody, Kellyanne, Jerron, get y'all president. You know, I'm not so sure if this president that we have now, 45, that's right, Donald John Trump, is even remotely in this land. I mean, this guy just comes up with some of the weirdest stuff. So he goes in on President Obama when he was president, of course, and this guy wouldn't even run for president at the time. He goes in on him about all of these executive orders he's signing. He can't do that. He can't legislate without using the Congress. But all of a sudden now, he likes to use the power of the pen, or his Sharpie is what he likes to do, right? This guy uses a Sharpie. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. So what I want you to do, I want you to check this out. Take a look and a listen to our president and his love of the executive order all of a sudden now that he can use.
Going it alone.
I'm taking executive action. We've had it.
At his private club, the president brought out the pens, signing a series of actions that bypass Congress after 2 weeks of talks for COVID relief failed.
Democrats are actively blocking the things that we want. And what we want is good for people.
He called for a new round of enhanced unemployment at a lower figure than the benefits that expired.
Why did you decide on $400 when previously families were receiving $600?
Yeah.
That will be a hardship for many. What do you say to them?
Well, no, it's not a hardship. This is the money that they need. This is the money they want. And this gives them a great incentive to go back to work.
This is the money they need. This is the money they want. This gives them a great incentive to go back to work. Let me tell you something, Mr. President. If these folks you're talking about, those people were getting $600, you basically cutting it in half. You're not helping anybody. The $600 was actually helping. It was helping the economy. It was helping families. It was keeping children in homes. It was keeping some kids in daycare. So guess what? You flubbed another one. But anyway, that's a whole nother story, y'all. For a change, stick to your golf game, sir. Improve your golf game. Leave real policy making to what? The professionals, because, sir, number one, you are not it. Well, it's never too late to do the right thing. However, for some odd reason in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, let's go to Kentucky. It's hard to issue this statement that 45 is all, he's made it very famous. You're fired, right? So he says you're fired. Why is it that Greg Fisher, who happens to be the mayor of the city of Louisville, and of course, we're not going to talk about the Kentucky AG, they made this odd decision that they're going to hold on to this information. Of course, it's been passed from the local prosecutors to the state AG to take a look at this case that involves Brianna Taylor. So I want you to take a quick listen here. A quick look.
Weeks before George Floyd's death fueled national protests around Black Lives Matter, the death of Brianna Taylor at the hands of police led to anger and grief in Louisville, Kentucky. Her case has now become a national touchpoint for protesters who often chant, "Say her name." As John Yang reports, the city of Louisville's response to the case is now a flashpoint all its own.
Anger and frustration are still fresh more than 4 months after 26-year-old Brianna Taylor died at the hands of Louisville police. No apparent progress in the investigation and no charges in the case.
Can you say her name? Brianna Taylor. Do you remember her name? Brianna Taylor.
All I'm saying is, folks, remember, say her name, Brianna Taylor. Brianna Taylor. Her memory, her life, her legacy has gone unfulfilled. Literally, the life has gone unfulfilled because we have a system, a government that's in place that says, well, we're going to wait to make sure that all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed. Sir, at some point, you got to say her name, Brianna Taylor. Brianna Taylor deserves justice. Well, speaking of bringing justice, it's official. We've been prognosticating this from the Funky Politics studios for, I guess, a couple of years now. And that is the Vice President Joe Biden will be and is the Democratic candidate for president on the Democrat side. But guess what? He chose Kamala Harris. That's right. The junior senator from California is now his running mate. So guess what? We got us a race, folks. This thing is going to be pretty interesting. You got Donald J. Trump on one side, you got Mike Pence, and then you have guess what? Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Take a quick listen here.
It's Kamala Harris, Wilford. The vice president's website now indicating that he has selected Kamala Harris, the Democratic senator from California, who, of course, ran for president in this cycle on the Democratic side of the aisle, did not win, had some contentious moments involving Joe Biden, but nonetheless, the former vice president has apparently overlooked those contentious moments and decided that Kamala Harris is the person who can help him win in November on the ticket with him against the president. Kamala Harris, of course, one of the most outspoken critics of the Trump administration in a town full of Democrats who are open critics of the Trump administration. She really.
Hey, there are all types of implications for this, right? First of all, with this choice, it shows Black Lives Matter. Black lives do matter, right? With this choice, it shows that Queen's reign, the sisters reign, brother. When it's all said and done, Queen's reign, and it shows that the Democrats are showing up for the fight. They are not going to let this be 2016. I'm glad to see that Joe Biden actually chose someone who can run with him and can win. She's got a spirit of winning. She's got a spirit of toughness. And we got this sister sitting over here from Howard University, AKA, hey, look, I'm going to shout out to the Skiwies out there. We got us somebody. We got a race on, folks. I'm not saying I have a favorite for the 2020 election, but I will say this. November 3rd, 2020, I prefer that you all raise money, you knock on doors, you do what you got, kiss babies, register, mobilize, and drive people to the polls, because it's going to be important to take this thing to the next level. And the next level is putting 45 and his friends out of office. But I said I don't have a dog in that hunt, right? But anyway, did I say that? No, I didn't say that. Now on to our guest for today. We have in the studio Dr. Altha Stewart, who happens to be the immediate past president of the American Psychiatric Association, current professor at the University of Tennessee Health Science Center, where she's also the chief of social and community psychiatry, to talk with us about some of those feelings and pain we're facing now, our children's mental and physical well-being, and also, how to search for the rainbow, and what a lot of us, have really been feeling like there's some cloudy days. We've been facing cloudy days now, and some of us see cloudy days in the future, but we want to talk to her. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with my very special guest, Dr. Altha Stewart. You know what? I'm going to talk to the vice presidential candidate and also the vice president. I think we're going to be talking to the next Surgeon General. But anyway, hold on just a moment. We'll have her back in just a second, guys.
Greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, one and all, to the little show that we like to call Black Nerd Power, BNP if you're nasty. I'm your host, Mr. Richard Douglas Jones, and with me, the co-hosts of Black Nerd Power, Mr. Marcus Seabury.
What's up, my nerd?
All nerdy, please. And Ms. Kimber. What's happening, man?
Hi. All right, first, here is the rage figure.
I love his helmet.
Talking about escapism and like, yo, I'm mad, but I'm tired. Like, is it okay that, like, if instead of going out to protest tonight, I want to sit and watch a movie? I'm just like, hell yeah, it's fine.
A quote unquote woke romance that features a character that's not being like objectified for her body, that does not necessarily mean that book will not have sex in it.
And I think on that note, we're going to end the show.
Katsukian. Download the Katsukian app, available on Android and iOS.
And on that note, look who we have in the studio today, Dr. Altha Stewart. How are you, young lady? You doing all right?
I'm doing good, thank you. How are you doing?
Ooh, Lord, with all that, I'm just hanging in there, Doc. I need to come see my doctor. We're in the office.
What you need to do is stop prognosticating. That's what you need to do. Talking about the next Surgeon General. Leave me alone. My work is hard enough.
It's hard enough.
My work is hard enough. Don't add nothing else to my list.
Doc, one of the things I want our listeners and our viewers, and I know we don't have you long, I want them to get a real good grasp of. You're a hometown person. Memphis is your home. You grew up here, school, formal education here. Then, of course, you went away, and you find yourself back in the grand city of Memphis, Tennessee, and that's to our credit. Right? That's to our credit. So I want to make sure that you know that, and that those folks out there that I've talked to, from Chairman Billingsley on over to the county mayor of the city, we all look to you as a thought leader and as someone who can really move the ball here.
Well, thank you. That's very kind and generous of all of you. I am just a Memphis girl, born and raised, South Memphis, went to Carver before it closed. Went to Christian Brothers, was in the first class of women there in 1970. So I've been here a long time. I did go away to go to medical school and work in other places, but I'm back. I came back about almost 20 years ago now.
Wow. Wow.
And have been working steady in this community since then.
Well, I know one of your specialties at UT is working with children and adolescents, especially in your field. Have you seen recently, has anybody shown anything since COVID that's led us to believe that our children, from a mentally and a physical standpoint, are in a safe place, or is there some work we got to do?
Well, there is lots of work we got to do. I mean, even before COVID, we had children in this community alone who were feeling suicidal, who were depressed and anxious about circumstances in their lives, who were getting bullied at school, who were being diagnosed as having some illness when in fact they were very likely responding to a whole host of traumas in their childhood that leave them feeling, adrift and alone and unprotected. So even before COVID, we had kids, some of whom had major challenges emotionally. I hesitate to say mental illness because I think we can sometimes over-diagnose things that children are responding to that are directly related to their life circumstances. If we understand, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about this, if we understand anything at all today, we know that what we now call ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, is the big name, but everybody shorthands it to ACEs. We know that kids, unlike when you and I were growing up, children should be seen and not heard. Kids won't remember, they don't understand. Now we know for sure that children do hear and take in things, and it does affect them. It affects their growing up. It affects how they see themselves. It affects how they interact with other people. They model themselves. They pick up on our feelings. So if we're trying to explain to them that we're not worried about what's going on, but we act worried, they know that we're not telling the truth, and that scares them. We've got kids today right here in Memphis whose parents have to go out every day and they watch on TV that people go out in the morning and don't come home at night because they get sick, go to the hospital and die. It could be their grandmama or big mama or Medea. Everybody is being impacted. We're showing it nonstop on TV, and these kids are picking up on that. And then you add in, they haven't been in school. We tell them school is important. We take them out of school for their own safety. And then we say, you're going to learn on TV or on the computer.
Wow. Well, no, I don't want to delay this. I want to stay on ACEs because, I'm 53, but as a kid, I grew up, and I can tell you right now, Mama got that butt, and she whipped me with some stuff that I know back then was illegal, and I know today, you hear about these Karens, so to speak.
Calling the hotline today, yeah.
Exactly. So people, but so today they're called ACEs, but it was called correcting children then, and I didn't kill anybody. It didn't. But it didn't lead to anything major. So why now there's a difference?
Remember though, back when you were getting the switch. Yes, that you had to pull off the tree yourself, or the extension cord or whatever, or the shoe that was thrown, whatever it was, there was always somebody in your family in the neighborhood who said, well, baby, that's okay. I love you. You're going to be okay. I know when I was growing up, if I did something on the corner, by the time I walked up to my house on the other corner, people were looking out the door saying, your mama waiting on you. They knew the neighborhood drums had already spread the word as to what I had done, and they loved me, but they were going to correct me because they knew how important that was. Think about that kind of love and attention for a child today. We don't interfere in other people's business. No. Some child is doing something, we ain't gonna say nothing to them because we don't want to deal with. And I understand the circumstances that surround that, but when you say what's different is the fabric and the community that you and I grew up in surrounded us, protected us, it corrected us and disciplined us. Because, my mama was famous, but you can't be wild in my house. That's right. You gonna follow some rules. And because of the way our communities have evolved, we no longer have that closeness, that structure, that interconnectedness that we once had. And for all kinds of reasons, I'm not saying right or wrong, for all kinds of reasons, the loss of that leaves our children out there struggling to figure out, where do I go? How do I find safety? What's okay?
Doc, is there a way to get that connection back? I mean, that's a pretty, and I'm sure it's a tough question to answer, but it seems like we have so many more helping agencies today. We have all of them. I've talked to one guy before. He said, "Now, if you got a nonprofit, make sure that it's helping and not hurting." But do we have we've got so many social network fabric, interconnected things, but we're still kind of hurting. Is that an inside thing in families, or is that something that maybe the outer community can fix?
Well, I think the external community of all of those agencies that are trying to surround them and protect them is a good thing, and we certainly need them. I think, though, as families and groups of caring adults in some kind of a unit, the tragedy, in addition to everything else that the COVID has brought, the tragedy is that people don't get to gather. Gathering becomes part of that protection for many people. Kids who don't get love at home look forward to seeing the grandmama on the weekend when everybody gathers at her house. That's the one time of the week that they are assured that somebody just gonna hug them and almost choke them to death in the hug, but they're gonna hug them. They're gonna call them all kinds of positive names. They're not gonna say you're stupid. I don't know why I had you. Whatever it is that kids experience inside the walls of their homes that leaves them traumatized, they don't have that when they're out with people who just love them. And it's that personal touch, I think, that families still need to figure out how to provide our children. They are desperate for us to say and do things that indicate that even at their worst moment, we still love them. It's what Brian Stevenson, the guy who wrote the book, the attorney, civil rights attorney who wrote the book, Just Mercy, what he calls being proximate and remaining engaged with our children. That's the best gift we can give them, staying close to them, letting them know that we care about them. We can dress it up with things like mentoring and everything, but the most important thing in the life of a growing child, if we want them to stay on a path of positive and change, the most important thing we can give them is care and consistent attention from an adult in their life.
Funny you say that about grandma and nana and all those, because from a personal side, growing up, my mother died when I was 13, but I can assure you that my grandmother on my dad's side and my great grandmother, who I call mama, from the time I think I was born until she left out of here, that was a safe place. So I would ride my bike to my granny's house, to my granny Leela's house, and I didn't even know my grandmother's name the first, I don't know, 15 years of my life. I just didn't know. All I know his name was Granny. And then I would hear my granddaddy call, and I'm like, "What? That name's Granny. What are you talking about, old man?" And so I guess all of those positive influences, it was almost like an escapism, right?
Yeah, I mean, in my own life, that's a similar story to mine. In my own life, I grew up living in the house with my grandmother and my parents and my siblings, and so I always knew that even if my mama and daddy wanted to whip me or punish me or something, my grandmama was always, I could go hide behind her. There's a family story about me running away from kindergarten because the kindergarten teacher was whipping everybody every day. And I ran home. If you know South Memphis, I ran from the church there on Parkway, whose name I'm forgetting right now, across Parkway, down to 3rd Street, and down 3rd Street. Now, I was in kindergarten, but I was convinced that there was something going on. I needed to go home. My grandmama was home all the time. I went home and explained to her. My mama came home. She wanted to take me right back. My grandmama said, no, that girl did not do all of that getting away from them unless something is going on. She ain't going back there. And I went to a new kindergarten. That was my
Wow.
grandmama's influence, her protection, because
Lord.
it wasn't that my mother and father were not my parents, but she knew something about me and understood something about me that they didn't, and she was not going to be moved. So I understand, like you, I understand the power of that kind of unconditional love. As a result of that, from a development, and I'm going to get a little science here, from the developmental standpoint, a child who experiences that kind of positive support consistently, even when they have, I was wrong for running away, putting myself in danger, crossing 2 major streets. I was wrong, no question about it. She didn't focus on that. She focused on what is wrong, what has happened. Today, when we say what's happened to you, not what's wrong with you, we're talking about ACEs. My grandmama knew about ACEs, and we hadn't even invented the term.
Yes.
And her unconditional love and support for me, just like what we teach today when we're talking about ACEs, that's what gives a child the confidence, the identity. I didn't need to go out looking for love in all the wrong places.
Yes.
My grandmother had positioned me to understand my value, my worth, and that I could trust somebody like her. So, I didn't have some of those challenges growing up. I was able to take risk and do some of the things that have led me to where I am today. Many of our children, and I work a lot with children who are trapped in the juvenile justice system.
Sure.
The stories of many of them do not include that kind of a grandmother identity, whether it's their grandmother or just somebody in their life. Their story does not include somebody who gets between them and the people who want to just push them into the system. That a lot of our kids don't have that.
You know something, Doc? You said about that grandmother figure with those children who were pushed into the system. I see today when I worked in juvenile court, the most loyal people coming down, and when I worked in the adult court system, the most loyal people coming down to stand with that child or that adult was grandmother. Grandma was gonna make it, because boy, let me put my Sunday best. I'm going down to that court to tell that judge. Now, I don't know what made her think that judge was gonna listen, but in some cases, it helped because a judge saw that community, saw that love, and said, "Boy, don't you see your mama and your grandmother over there?" And I think today, and that's another show. We're gonna do another show, but I want to get into this piece about. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, but you make the point for us that kind of consistency. How many people did you see down at the court, whether it was the adult court or the juvenile court? Strong. You can't tell me what to do. When grandmama walked in the room, the head dropped. Yes,
start
ma'am.
crying
Yes,
and start crying. Grown men start crying.
How do we translate that into? Let's get that feeling in them before, as opposed to after the fact. That's what ACEs is supposed to help us. All of that learning that we have about ACEs is supposed to help us understand what we are seeing early so we can intervene or prevent if we can, so that we don't get to the end of this and say, well, now they've got a record. And now they can't get a job and they can't get a loan so that they can't go to school. And nobody wants to be around them because they steal. Once it begins, it's very hard for that individual to get out of that cycle. That's why the ban the box is so important. For people who do turn their lives around, a second chance is what they need. For kids, we're not supposed to lock them up to punish them. We're supposed to put them in those programs and in those situations and institutions to rehabilitate. That's what the legislation says. Juvenile justice systems are for rehabilitation, not punishment.
Well,
So I go off on this stuff.
I know this is your bailiwick, but everything is yours. So I've got a psychiatrist on the line in the studio today. I'm trying to get all the free time I can. Lord, I need to get up on your couch. But I want to talk about those adolescents. My daughter, who just turned 21 on yesterday, my son is 19. I mean, they've come to me and they have these feelings because of COVID and the racial unrest in our country. What can parents say to some of the older kids? I mean, who are facing this new life challenge that they've never seen this before. They don't know who Rodney King is. My kids were born in 98 or 99 and 2000, so they don't know who, other than seeing it on YouTube, right?
Yeah. Well, I think the big lesson that I'm trying to encourage parents to learn from this kind of disconnect that we're experiencing among the generations is to have conversations, to really talk about stuff. Kids often, and I remember as a young person not wanting to listen to the old folks either. But now more than ever, it's not just about boring them with history. It's about helping them understand how that history led to this point in time and their place in this point in time. Right now, young adults, if you will, anyone between 18 and 26, still has the potential for the brain being formed in a positive way. It's not there yet. It's still baking, if you will.
Yes.
The adult brain doesn't get fully developed until you're about 25 and 26. So there's still some connections being made. There's still some learning being done. And if we can use this moment, as tragic as it is, if we can use this moment to help educate them to, this is not just something in the history books. Well, today, I guess, it's not just something in the history on the internet.
That's right.
This is something that is living. The same things. Let's just take healthcare, for example. Everybody knows about the Tuskegee experiment, but they don't know about the things that led up to that being okay. There were atrocities in healthcare long before the government conspired to literally kill Black men to test the natural course to study the natural course of an illness like syphilis. There were things that led up to that. There were policies in the healthcare system. There was a time when segregated hospitals were authorized by the government. And so second-class citizenship, as we know it historically, it pervaded every part of our lives: health, education, social services, corrections, everything. We have to help our young people understand. Don't just laugh it off or brush it off as history. This is how we got to this place. Understanding our history allows us to change our future. If you don't know where you've been, you can't plot a course for where you're going. We all grew up hearing that. Now we've got to help them understand that. We adults of today, you and me and our contemporaries, we told them, we fought hard for you so that you wouldn't have to do it. We desegregated schools. We got you into these integrated programs. We gave you that glimpse into a different life. And many of these kids grew up having sleepovers with their white classmates and assumed that racism didn't exist.
That's right.
And
exactly right.
didn't talk about it because, after all, it didn't exist. And now when they're having these conversations and hearing their white friends from high school talk about, I didn't know it was that bad. And they're like, well, but how could you not know? I'm Black. Oh, I don't think of you as Black. I mean, these are conversations that my friends, young adult children, are now having, and they are blown out of the water. We didn't do a good job of helping translate the history of us into a lesson for them that didn't have to conflict with their experience, but they needed to know. And so there's this big gap. And I'm not, 25 or 26 anymore, but I can only imagine at that age, the disparity between what I lived and now what I'm hearing has been happening that I was not even aware of. And then you've got some kids who believe strongly that race, ethnicity, and all of that should not be the full measure of their identity, and that people like you and me focus on being Black as opposed to being human. And, in an intellectual way, I can get behind that argument. In my day-to-day life, I know, even as the first Black president of my 39,000 member organization in 175 years, when I walk into the room, people see a Black woman. No matter, they don't see president, they don't see professor, they don't see director, they see, who is that Black woman?
Mm-hmm.
Still today, I get that look. And you know the look I'm talking about.
That's right.
Am I in the wrong place? Are you coming to, on the phone? They hear me, but then they see me and think, that's not who I thought I was going to
I didn't know you were Dr. Stewart.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're Dr. Stewart. Well, what did you expect?
Yeah, or I hear Dr. Stewart on the phone, and they come back and say, "Well, Dorothy Stewart is on the phone."
Oh,
No,
Lord.
Dr. Stewart. So there are still these what we generally call microaggressions that I think are much deeper than the micro level, but that's the language of today. Um,
Doc, I want to stop you there. I got to get you out of here. I know you've got a hard stop, but one thing before you get out of here, we've also got adults. We've got some adults who lost their loved ones, who could be seniors or who may not be seniors, who could be brothers they lost. We got some who lost careers and jobs because of COVID,
Yeah.
and we've got some who have lost their life savings. What do you say to them about tomorrow? What do you say to them about that there are other possibilities, that this isn't the end? There is
Yeah.
something else. What do you say to those folks out there?
First, I try to encourage people not to allow the despair to overwhelm them, to take it one day at a time, and that right now there are a multitude of places, people, and things to be helpful on a day-to-day basis. It's not the long range planning right now. It's the getting from moment to moment, sometimes day to day. And that embarrassment and shame and all of that stuff should be put outside, because everything that is happening today, whether it's COVID or the racial injustice, all of that is not your fault.
Yes.
It is not something that you did. The fact that the place you worked for 20 years and were valued as an essential person to that operation had to close because of the virus, that's not your fault. Now, as a result of its closing, it changed your life. And in some people's cases, it changed it in ways that they will never get back to their normal. But think of it as, I have to do something to keep myself going. And whether that's getting, the first lady, the forever first lady in my mind anyway, Michelle Obama, talked about this recently, about understanding now that she had this low-grade depression because she was exhausted from everything that was going on. And this is a woman, remember, who had to be resilient in the face of political attacks, personal attacks, people calling her a gorilla. She had to coin the phrase, when they go low, we go high, just to keep herself going. Even she admitted that these days it's harder and harder. And she wasn't trying to compare herself with the frontline worker who was living paycheck to paycheck, who's looking at eviction. She was just saying, you are not alone in experiencing this, and this is what is helping me. And she said, get up every day, have a plan for that day. Don't be planning for next week, plan that day. Interact socially with your family and friends that live in your circle, in your house, because you don't want to be out there spreading the virus. Take care of yourself as best as you can. Eat healthy and nutritionally, stay physically active. Find a reason every day to at least smile if you cannot laugh. And if you have kids, remember that a part of what you do to stay strong will help them stay strong, because they're going to look to you for that model.
Dr. Stewart, I know you got to get out. I appreciate you stopping by with us here on Funky Politics. I thought in today's time, on today, somebody had to hear what you had to say. Somebody is going to be assisted. Somebody's going to be helped. Somebody's children will be loved better. There will be a grandmother that will step up, hopefully, because she heard what you had to say today. Because we do need those grandmothers back. God knows we need them back, and we need them. We need millions of them back, right? Because I remember that love. But I know you got to get out of here. But I love the work that you're doing. Go ahead.
Since you mentioned grandmothers again, I want to give grandmothers permission right now to learn how to do FaceTime.
Yes.
So that even if the baby can't come visit you, they can still see that face and have a special thing with them. With my grandmother, it was, I got home from school and she let me help her cook. And nobody else could do it but me. Making cornbread, shaking the chicken in the brown bag and the flour.
Cakes and pies and all, and you get to lick the bowl. And when that comes in, mercy.
I was her, in today's parlance, I was her sous chef, and she taught me those things. And that was our special thing. Nobody else could do it. Every grandmother who has previously been involved in the life of their grandchild in a big way has that one thing. I'm sure it's a secret, And they don't need to tell nobody, but they need to get comfortable with that FaceTime thing on that phone that somebody gave them so they could stay in touch with them, and have a regular FaceTime with that grandbaby. It'll make their lives much, much happier. And for the grandparent who now can't be around people for fear, it'll allow them that connection again. So every grandparent out there has permission to make that happen for them. And if they didn't have a ritual, now's the time to set something up with that grandbaby.
Well, and now you've heard it from Dr. Stewart. The doc in the house told
Yep.
you what to do. Get
That's
that
my
FaceTime going, or if you got the Android and you got an iPhone, get that Duo. I think it's called Google Duo. I got it on my phone so I can talk to my loved one out of town. So make sure that you do that. Dr. Stewart, thank you so much for being with us. Hey, look, stay in the fight. Keep doing what you're doing, because you're helping us and you're helping somebody, and these children love you. Okay.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure always to be with you. Anytime. Anytime.
Thank you so much. And we'll be right back with a few closing thoughts right here on Funky Politics.
Hello and welcome to R&R on Sports. We are pleased to have with us today Mike Wallace, who is the Grind City Media Senior Editor. Mike, welcome to R&R on Sports.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me, man. And I hope you guys are safe and pushing through this, man. Thanks a lot. It's been far too long. I'm glad we're finally able to do this.
Absolutely. But Howard, you got to put some respect on this brother's name. Now, he used to do the Heat Index for the Miami Heat. This brother went to the championship 4 times in a row. Now, he wasn't on the court actually before the game and after the game, but he went to the championship 4 times in a row with the Miami Heat. What's up, my brother Mike?
Hey, what's going on, man?
Kadzukian. Check out all your Kadzukian favorites now. Download the Kadzukian app, available on Android and iOS.
Hey, look, we've had a show for the ages. Dr. Altha Stewart is everybody's doctor. If one thing I want to make sure that I want our listeners and our viewers to understand is, just like you get that physical health check, you may get your annual, if you're a female, you get your annual checkup every year. Go by and see someone. Sit down and talk to somebody, whether it be a counselor or a psychologist or psychiatrist. Use that insurance you've got. If not, there are plenty of community health centers in our city, in our country, that you can actually go and make an appointment, and you can talk some of these challenges or these opportunities or even some of these successes. Sometimes we just need to share with people, and we need people to listen to us. Make sure you do that. Dr. Stewart is a gem in our community. I am going to be talking her name up. I like Dr. Adams as our Surgeon General, but I think our children need a Surgeon General. I think it's time for a Surgeon General who represents children. And I think Dr. Altha Stewart is just that person for it. And when they ask me, and they will ask me, I'm going to make sure they know there's a young lady that sits in Memphis, Tennessee, who is an associate dean, who was formerly the president of the American Psychiatric Association, who could do wonders for our country in helping us heal once, hopefully, this 45 administration is gone bye-bye, who can help us heal the wounds that I know we'll have in our country. Make sure COVID-19 hasn't gone anywhere, you all. The country is still, in some instances, the numbers are still high. They're plateauing in some areas. But I want to make sure that I leave you with this. Wash your hands. Stay 6 feet apart at all times if you can, and wear your mask. It will help you live, but it will help someone else live longer. Thank you so much. We'll see you again right here next time on Funky Politics.